The first thing Rosalie Finch felt was pain. Not fear, not confusion, just pain. It burned white and endless, cutting through the fog in her mind. Her breath came in short, broken gasps. Dirt filled her mouth, and blood soaked through the torn hem of her dress. Somewhere behind her, faint gunfire echoed across the valley like thunder fading into silence. She tried to move, but her legs screamed in agony. The wagon trail was gone. The world spun beneath the hard blue sky. She remembered the faces of the children she was supposed to teach, the new schoolhouse waiting near South Pass City. Then everything blurred again. A small cry escaped her lips, lost among the pines of the Wind River Range. Her bonnet lay beside her, crushed and stained with mud. Ants crawled across the fabric, and she didn't even have the strength to brush them away. Night had fallen when she last remembered running. 2 men had stepped from the brush, eyes wild with whiskey and hunger. The driver of the supply wagon shouted once, then gunfire tore through the air. Rosalie had jumped, stumbling down the rocky bank, vanishing into the trees. Since then, everything had become a fevered dream of shadows, pain, and exhaustion. Now morning pressed down hard. Sweat and blood made her skin glisten in the heat. She touched her thigh and felt the wound throb beneath her fingers, hot, swollen, angry. Her stomach turned at the sight of it, the cut deep and purple, slick with dirt. She whispered to no one. Please, someone. A horse snorted nearby. Her body froze, heart hammering. A shape moved between the trees, a man on horseback, broad-shouldered, a weathered hat casting shadow across his face, a rifle slung behind his saddle. For a moment, terror flooded her. She thought the bandits had come back to finish what they'd started. Her trembling hand reached for a rock, but she was too weak to lift it. The man dismounted slowly and crouched beside her. His voice was low, calm, steady. Easy now. You're hurt bad. He smelled of leather dust and the faint sharpness of whiskey. She saw the blue of his eyes, clear, alert, but kind. My leg, she breathed. It's swelling fast. He looked down, jaw tightening. The wound was angry red and pulsing under the skin. He reached for a canteen, poured water over his hands, and studied her face. If we don't fix this soon, you won't make it past tomorrow. Her pulse quickened. The sound of his words mixed with the rustle of the pines and the drone of flies around her wound. Somewhere far below, the Sweetwater River glittered in the sunlight, cold and indifferent. She tried to speak, but only one thought filled her mind. Who is this man, and why did his calm voice make her believe she might live? The sun set high now, bright and merciless. Rosalie's lips were cracked, her skin pale beneath streaks of dirt. The man poured a trickle of water onto a cloth and pressed it to her forehead. I try to stay awake, he said softly. You're safe for now. She nodded faintly. Who are you? Just a man who's seen too many bad mornings, he said, glancing toward the trail. The name's Eli McCree. Said. He checked her wound again, frowning. You weren't wrong. It's swelling fast. Am I going to lose it? Not if I can help it. He pulled a bottle from his saddlebag. The air filled with the bite of whiskey. This'll burn like hell, he said. It'll keep you alive. She tried to laugh, but it came out a weak gasp. You sure you know what you're doing? He gave a tired half smile. Used to patch up worse than this back in the war. He cleaned the wound and poured whiskey straight onto it. Rosalie cried out, clutching at the dirt. Eli held her steady with one hand, murmuring, breathe, teacher, breathe. He tore a strip from a faded red scarf, one that looked like it had seen 100 miles, and wrapped it tight around her thigh. Then he crushed a handful of dried herbs between his palms, mixing them with a bit of water. When it was done, he pressed the herbs deep into the wound and bound it clean. Her eyes drifted half shut, breath shallow but even. The fever began to ease. Eli slumped back, wiping sweat from his brow. But the moment of peace broke with the snap of a twig. Bootsteps. He cursed softly. The same 2 men had circled back. He grabbed his rifle and moved behind a boulder, waiting. The bandits crept closer, whispering. No food left, one said. That horse will feed us or carry us out. Eli waited until the first stepped into the open. A rock rolled under his boot. Both men spun toward the sound. Too late. 2 sharp shots split the air, sending dust and splinters flying near their feet. Before they could run, Eli was on them. He slammed one down with the rifle butt and drove the other into the sand. The fight ended as fast as it began. He tied their wrists tight and said flatly, You're done. There's a deputy in Lander who'll know what to do with you. They spat curses, but Eli ignored them. When he turned back, Rosalie lay still by the fire, her face peaceful in the evening light. He knelt beside her, whispered, You're safe now. But then, hoofbeats. Slow, heavy, coming closer. Eli's hand went to his rifle again. It wasn't more trouble. By dawn, the riders arrived. A patrol from Lander, led by Deputy Howe. They'd followed the echo of Eli's gunshots through the valley and found the captured men bound by the riverbank. Justice moved slow out here, but it still moved. Eli stayed behind with Rosalie. Through the long hours of night, he wiped her brow, kept the fire burning, and whispered to keep her awake. When the sun rose, her fever broke. She opened her eyes to see him sitting by the embers, hat tipped low, the red scarf folded beside her. "You didn't leave," she said faintly. He smiled, lines deep around his eyes. They didn't have anywhere better to be. Days passed. He fed her broth, changed her bandages, told quiet stories from the war. She learned he'd once had a wife and son, lost to fever years ago. Since then, he'd lived alone, helping whoever crossed his path. Pain recognized pain. When she was strong enough to stand, Eli rode with her to South Pass City. The schoolhouse stood crooked on a hill, its paint peeling, the bell rusted but still hanging. "This where you start over," Eli said, helping her down. She looked at the empty windows, then at him. "We both start over, I think." He stayed to build her a porch, a fence, even carved a little box for chalk and books. Every morning before the children came, she'd see him sitting by the gate, sipping coffee, pretending to fix something that didn't need fixing. And every day, he left before the bell rang. No promises. No big words, just presence. By autumn, the hills turned gold. Rosalie's limp faded. Eli still stopped by with supplies, with stories, or sometimes just silence. One evening, she handed him a cup of tea and said, "You know, I never did thank you properly." He smiled. "You're alive." "That's thanks enough." They sat watching the sun melt behind the mountains, neither feeling alone. Out here, folks learned that kindness could save as surely as a gun, that justice wasn't always loud, and love didn't always need to speak. So maybe that's the real question. Between law and mercy, survival and love, which would you choose when no one's watching? If this story moved you, give it a like, share it with someone who still believes in quiet heroes, and subscribe for more tales from the wild heart of the American West. Now pour yourself a cup of tea, lean back, and tell me in the comments what time it is where you're listening from, and what this story made you feel.